All right, welcome to our Board of Commissioners meeting for 1 p.m. Monday, July 17th, 2023. Is there any citizen input, somebody in the room or anyone online for any items that are not on the agenda? There's a raise hand feature if somebody's following and wants to mention something. So seeing none, item number 1, annual update for Jericho Road. Don Senecal, thank you for joining us. Great to see you.
Always good to see you. Commissioners Dare, Boone, Chang, Mr. Crop, Ms. Hale, Ms. Riley, Fitzfold. I wrote over.
No,
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's as far as my name.
Robert Kendall, our Chief Financial Officer.
Oh, good to see you. My name is Don Senecal, and I'm here today on behalf of Jericho Road. It's a 501c3 nonprofit social service organization based in Redmond. My report is not getting longer, the print's getting larger.
Nope, there we
Okay,
go.
sorry.
That helped.
I would like to begin by telling you that our board president, Dr. Mark Keener, and our vice president, Eleanor Bessonette, both apologize for not being here today, but Dr. Keener is pulling teeth and Eleanor is spoiling her grandchildren. So we all have our priorities. Sorry, but so you're gonna have to tolerate me for a while. I'll try to be brief. Jericho Road's mission is to provide consistent nurturing and tangible support to the homeless and those in need within the Redmond, Oregon area. Our area of service includes Redmond, Terrebonne, Tomalo, and areas of the Crooked River Ranch. We have been living our mission for 17 years by operating and maintaining 6 specific programs, and you have been supplied with copies of our 2022 report. I'm sure that you've had more than enough time to read through it several times and committed large portions to memory, I'm sure. And each of our programs are described in detail there. They are the Jericho Table with free congregate meals 6 nights a week, the weekend food, student food packs. These packs are now being prepared by student volunteers from the Redmond School District. And our area of service has expanded from the 15 schools of the Redmond School District to include the Head Start schools as well. Our housing assistance program is designed to prevent people from becoming homeless by providing temporary support during financial crises. Our emergency supplies program provides tents, sleeping bags, clothing, fuel, food, water, heaters, etc. Our homeless camp outreach program, delivering services and food, water, clothing, fuel, pet food, and other essentials. We do these programs in partnership with others in the community, such as the Mosaic Medical Van, Redmond Library, Deschutes County Mental Health, St. Vincent de Paul, and others. Finally, we have the Rubber Ducky, which is our 3-unit shower trailer, providing personal hygiene items and fresh underwear, along with opportunity for many homeless workers to receive at least 1 refreshing shower a week. There's a special note here. The Rubber Ducky appeared for the 4th of July parade in Redmond. This is our 2nd year. And this year it was augmented by the fact that we had a bubble machine and additional music. So we had a really great time. I urge the commissioners to pay some attention to page 7 of the report, Jericho Road by the Numbers, to fully appreciate the impact our programs have on the community and the depth and variety of service we provide. Beyond the numbers and data, however, we cannot begin to calculate the personal and human connections our volunteers are capable of establishing with people who are by nature frightened, wary, confused, and overwhelmed by circumstance. Treating people kindly and providing a sense of self-worth and dignity is an intangible, but it is critical to all of us. Jericho Road would like to thank the commissioners for your support over the years. It's been critical. It has allowed Jericho Road to enhance our legitimacy in the community with other organizations and to establish our professionalism and dedication to our mission with foundations, businesses, corporations, and other community supporters. Jericho Road would like to acknowledge the excellent and professional staff of your mental health program. Coordinator Colleen Thomas and staffers Katie DeVito, David Fox, and Solomar Fisk. Their professional skills are critical in partnering with Jericho Road in our outreach program. We understand that Ms. Fisk has recently suffered a very serious medical condition, and we wish her a complete and speedy recovery. Jericho Road operates as a wholly volunteer coordinated organization with each of the 13 board members responsible for specific program responsibilities, while supported in turn by more than 1,000 volunteers from our community. We are also the largest ecumenically supported organization in Central Oregon, with 15 local congregations providing both financial and volunteer support for our programs. Jericho Road provides critical services and direct contact with conversation with people who have literally been shut off from any meaningful human contact and access to humane treatment. We listen, we care, we act. We help whenever possible. With your support, we would like to continue until our services in Redmond community and Deschutes County are no longer necessary. Although we are a small organization, we would like to present each of you with a small token of our respect and admiration. Just into my lunch bag. Yeah, this is very sweet.
Exciting.
I know. It should be. It isn't every day that happens. Let's see if I've said everything. Okay. Such as the board has authorized me to present each of you with an official logoed golf ball. If you'd be kind enough to pass, don't throw it, okay? Here. In honor of our 8th annual benefit golf tournament at Eagle Crest, will be on Saturday, August 12th. You are all invited to drop by, bid on silent auction. You can each actually participate in handing out prizes or hit something with a club if you'd like. Just don't throw them at each other until I leave. Thank you for your time and your attention. If you have any questions, I'll attempt an answer.
Thank you very much for the update. Very positive, many years of service.
Well, one thing I have to apologize for is that, you know, it is July. And this is an annual report. I would have hoped that we could have been a little bit sooner, but to be honest with you, we've been really busy. We've been a lot busier than the priority of this. So I would hope you would understand the circumstances. So,
Well, from our local government point of view, this is 2 weeks into the new fiscal year, so this is New Year's still.
I mean, it's so
See,
great.
there you go.
Little did I know.
So you mentioned provide these services until they're not necessary anymore. You know, these days things are happening, right? You know, we hear about Hunnell Road and Deschutes County's following up on code enforcement and rural lands, dispersed camping. East side of Redmond, we're trying to do a land swap, which is you know, second priority to whatever's going on in Bend right now, but we'd like to proceed with that. So I'm just advocating for, you know, partnership in really truly trying to make this situation smaller taking 100% problem, making it 90%. And problem is just a term too, taking whatever this is, 100% and making it 90%. And so, yeah, hopefully we can work together on that. As I say, kind of the summer for action right now.
Yeah, the only point I would remind the commissioners is that Jericho Road is a nonprofit organization whose programs treat symptoms. We unfortunately don't have the power or the authority to be able to address basic costs. And so, yes, to that extent, we are at your disposal as much as with our resources and our commitment could possibly be.
Just acknowledging that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So John, this,
From the perspective,
Yes, sir.
Any insights you'd like to offer us on, kind of people moving into homelessness, people moving out of homelessness? I mean, we from our point in time count, the numbers are getting larger. But, are there people who are exiting, do you see people exiting homelessness? And can you kind of speak about how the services that Jericho Road and other organizations?
Well, Eric knows me well enough to know that my opinions are an open book on more than one level. Under these circumstances, if you were to back to speak as a citizen and as a person in the social service business, I would be more than happy to comment. As a representative of Jericho Road today, I would be remiss if I didn't say, off the record kind of a thing, but what the impression is. So I would just assume, if you don't mind, I would feel much more comfortable doing it in that context than as being perceived as a representative of Jericho Road.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm very interested in your observations as someone who
I can tell
is
you this from my
is deeply
experience
engaged
with,
every day. So.
yeah, from our experience with our outreach program, we have replaced several people, most fortunately into transitional housing and to RV parks with vehicles that are acceptable, which is always a huge challenge, especially now. And I can also tell you that from my personal experience with the church that I attend, we've been directly involved with the outreach or REACH program for as long as it's been in existence. We average 5 campers in the parking lot per day. Those people have been there for some period of time, but many of them over the period of the last couple of years have transitioned out to homes, apartments, or RV places once they get, some stability in their lives. So yes, it does. Yes, the big challenge, of course, for you folks is that is having the resources to match the demand.
Don, my question was, what is the deer trying to eat in the photograph?
I think it's cake.
Is that like a rhubarb special or something?
I think it's cake on the table. Yeah.
Look at the frosting.
Do they actually eat it?
No,
No? Well, it looks like they're pretty close.
no, she's just being curious. And what if she did? It's a good cake.
Mm.
Well, no, they were eating the rhubarb at my house this spring, so.
You have
it's on
to
the-
eat rhubarb?
They have been, the leaves, yeah. I know, it's-
So far mine.
right, so we need to invite you back then. I think that would be important to have you come back as a citizen.
I would be honored to do that. Yeah, give me a day or two, and so I can make sure that I get.
Don, what you could do is just come as citizen input on whatever day works for you. Might be easier that way. You can just pick a day that works for you. Each board meeting has the citizen input section
at the beginning.
At 9 AM.
What?
Well, Mondays, the meeting started at 1, Wednesdays, the meeting started at 9.
Okay, all right. And about how much of a period of time do you allow for citizen input?
So it's 3 minutes is our published testimony time for, comment. And then, yeah,
But then if there's questions from the
Yeah.
board, then sometimes the 3 minutes.
It stands.
Okay,
Or you could actually write something up too, if you felt like 3 minutes was really way inadequate. And, make your statement and then give us some writing too.
okay. It would be helpful if any of you might have some specific issues that you would like to have addressed. I would be more than happy to look at it from that point of view too. So,
But we so appreciate your 17 years of this group being all together. That's really outstanding.
thank you so much. Appreciate your support.
For all the work that Jericho Road is doing to essentially keep things from being much worse.
Yes, thank you so much.
have a great day.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks for the water, Eric.
You bet.
I'll send you an email.
Please do.
Item number 2 is a work session, a proposed revision to Deschutes County Code regarding public contract.
Good afternoon, commissioners. So yes, we haven't scheduled a public hearing yet, but we'll do that after this. This was just a work session opportunity to answer any questions that the board might have with regard to changes to what's kind of collectively known as the county contracting code. Some of it was motivated by Senate Bill 1047, and they increased some of the dollar thresholds, and some of them were just some cleanups that county staff wanted to have brought in. Probably the major one would be increasing the thresholds on certain types of contracts. The $10,000 threshold for direct appointments going up to $25,000. We also addressed the signature authority that the county has currently. Department heads have up to 25,000. Other than health, that has 50, and then the county administrator has up to 150, and then above that goes to the county commissioners. My understanding is the county administrator may have vetted this with you three in some one-on-ones, and the idea was to increase all the department heads to 50 and increase the county administrator to 250. Recognizing that these thresholds have been in place for quite a while, and dollars have gone up. So it's a relative, I wouldn't quite call it a housekeeping amendment, but it's along the lines of a housekeeping amendment. And as you can see, most of the pages that we provided for the entire 2 sections of code were not touched. It was very limited portions that we touched. I can answer any questions you might have if there's anything of particular interest to you.
So the health director was at 50, so what would they be at now?
Admin wanted to keep them at 50, so it'd be uniform across the board. The department heads would all be 50.
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you most department heads don't sign contracts anywhere near that. Typically it's health, maybe the sheriff's office, that are getting into contracts that size. Road, it's usually way above that, so it's not going to make much of a difference for road, the 25 to 50. I think the biggest contract I've signed as a department has maybe 13 grand. So the 50 for me isn't going to mean anything either. But I think it was just, the thinking was it was time to maybe move those up a little bit to keep in line with the times.
Well, these are all budgeted, kind of pre-planned type contract. I mean, if it's anything out of the budget, it pop right up in front of us. And
That's correct. And as far as contracts go, all of them come through finance, legal, admin, risk, either some of us or all of us, every contract the county engages in cycles through there. So there's a lot of eyes
Yeah.
on any contracts that the county's involved with. And the thresholds that did go up, you know, through Senate Bill 1047, that's just in keeping with state law. So that's why I say that's sort of a little bit housekeeping. And we would schedule this, like I said, for a public hearing. I don't know, I'll check with Brenda when it's available. I don't know if there's any great urgency, but we probably try to get this sometime in August, certainly no later than September before you, and then the only question at that point would be if you are in favor of the revisions, would we do that by emergency or not? Or would you have it be a 90-day play out? So, something to think about before we come back on a public hearing.
Well, I did print out 1047 because I was curious how long it had been in existence. And it was just from this regular session of
Yes.
23.
Yes,
So it's not like it was 3 years ago and we're now catching up.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Lee was watching that. Lee Randall was on that from, I think when it was introduced as a concept, he had his eyes on it, so. Yeah, our staff was on top of it, staff meaning Lee, and he brought us along.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. We'll get a public hearing scheduled.
Item number 3, use of opioid settlement funds.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Stephanie and I are going to take this item. Janice is here in person and Dee is available online. Just as background, the state of Oregon entered into a settlement with opioid manufacturers. This happened throughout the United States. And as a result of the state of Oregon's efforts, Deschutes County was awarded $6.7 million in settlement dollars from the opioid manufacturers. That $6.7 million is over the annual distribution over the next 18 years. The health department was asked to put together a proposal on what they would do with those funds. Should those be directed to the health department? And the health department presented to the board. The presentation is actually in the board packet. Health services proposed focusing on 3 areas. One was prevention activities. The second was collaborative cross-section coordination and surveillance activities. And the third area was intervention activities through the stabilization center. At the time, the board talked about casting a wider net and looking at broader opportunities. And the board also talked about using evidence-based proposals. Board also asked the health department to share their proposal with the local public safety coordinating committee, which they did. And the local coordinating committee talked about involving other county departments or regional partners in these proposals. So we are back before you today, asking the board for direction on how to move forward with the opioid settlement dollars. And Stephanie's going to walk through several different options. There are broader options, but we boiled it down to about four main ways to move forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stephanie.
All right, so as you're aware, there are multiple strategies that these dollars can be used for. Racial equity, rural youth, pregnant, postpartum women, incarcerated population, prevention, medication assisted treatment. And so like Eric said, we've kind of narrowed options down to 4 ways to review and solicit additional use of the settlement funds. So the first way is to approve the 3 proposals from health services as presented or with minor changes that were presented on April 3rd. The second suggestion, which kind of ties into this, is revise or approve like 1 of the 3, 2 of the 3 proposals from health services, and then possibly consider or invite proposals from other county departments. And then kind of the last option of these first 4 is to invite proposals from other county departments and encouraged county departments to partner with community nonprofits to implement the strategy and provide services. So curious what,
Great. Well, so yeah, it's kind of for our discussion now at this point, but thank you so much.
And we acknowledge that another option could be just to do an RFP for community nonprofits, but we see great benefit in partnering with a county department to provide that collaboration and also oversight over that service. But that is an option for the commissioners.
So I've got two areas that just kind of for discussion. And I think I might have mentioned this before in some setting, but you know, we had two different in Southern Shutes County in the Pine area, we had two different offices. In fact, three I know of that they basically kind of started to get overrun by people coming in looking for refills on their meds years ago. So this is just their pain meds, you know, they're looking for their refills, and it really you know, stopped these small offices from having a service-minded physician's assistant healthcare facility, you know, in the private market. So I just want to lay that out there as that's a reference point for me, knowing that, oh, that is what the opioid situation was. I mean, it was not healthy. People just looking for those refills and basically running small offices out of business because they couldn't even keep up with their front office, people coming in the front door trying to get this prescription filled. So, and then on the ground, recovery programs just jumps right out of it. You know, the one thing we're trying to deal with is secure residential treatment facilities or variations of any kind of treatment. For residential treatment, it kind of comes to mind here. So if we could find a path for adding those resources, because we, you know, we have a lot of people offering that first responder activity. You know, we definitely have the stabilization center, and we have homeless issues, people getting stuck in addiction cycles. And everybody comes to the conclusion, it's like, geez, if we just had somewhere for you to go, we could help, you know, help you. So starting from that back end, maybe something I'd support. And just big high level statements right now. We'll see where we go here. Any other thoughts?
Okay, so Janice already got the email from me today, but when I was leaving Deer Ridge, visiting that on Friday, the most amazing thing appeared, a billboard in Jefferson County that I'd asked for months ago that says 18 to 45-year-olds, the leading killer is fentanyl. It's an amazing billboard, and I immediately called up Commissioner Sublick, and he said Dr. Banker had asked them and was, you know, wasn't quite sure if it was the right thing to do, but it's clearly the right thing to do. Talking to people, we are losing people from fentanyl all over this country. The overdose is it is overwhelming, and I don't know where that billboard needs to come from to have another one into Shutes County, but I would really appreciate that. And then what I really think, listening to what's happening in Deer Ridge on the minimum security side and what they're doing to get people off of drugs. I was talking to Davey this morning about peer recovery services, and I know I was told what we have Piper, Turning Point, Best Care, but we really need to let people know that there are options in order to, if you have an opioid issue, not giving someone a foil, but actually giving them an injection, whatever it is, that will help them get back to their life. And I worry about that constantly. So that's, I feel like recovery programs is really, it's important. People need to know about more recovery programs.
I guess I would just say that we didn't fight this lawsuit. We came in at the tail end as beneficiaries. The parameters for how these funds can be used have been established, and the proposed uses from health services seem to fit those categories pretty well, and I see no reason not to just proceed with those.
So as I say, Commissioner Dare, you mentioned recovery programs just like I did.
Yeah.
Is
I mean,
that-
if you have seen Is Seattle Dying, the documentary that was out a couple of years ago, in the end of that documentary, they refer to Rhode Island. And Rhode Island has a program that's actually fairly successful. And then I watched a program last week called Opioid USA. And the doctor that's doing the injections in Southern California said if people that are on opioids can do this injection, it's a monthly injection, they actually have a 70% success rate. So somehow we've got to promote those kind of programs so that people know there is help out there and, you know, the possibility to recover. Because the death rate is really, it's overwhelming. Rick Chalefin told me 2 months ago at Central Oregon Health Council that they had lost 7 patients that are 7 clients of theirs that have been going through their program in 3 months. And that was in this year, 2023. I haven't talked to him recently about it, but it's a huge issue that apparently we're not talking about enough.
Tony, Chair, maybe good to have Janice come out.
Yeah, so that was gonna be my next step, exactly. So Janet, yeah, you heard her say kind of our introductory thought on this. Recovery programs, just the thing that was just mentioned a couple times. And then, you go back to the 3 pages that you had provided previously. Any thoughts? I'm sure you got lots of thoughts.
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts. I'm trying to keep it brief. Aside from any interest we have as health services, and if you have specific questions about what we proposed, I can certainly talk about that. But the one thing I would think about with these dollars is that there's a large tranche of dollars on the front end, and then it dwindles over a period of almost 30 years, not 30 years, into the 2030s. So in terms of funding ongoing treatment, it could be challenging unless there's a program that can say if we can have this much as a lump sum up front, we think we can make that last for some time. I would say that treatment is a costly endeavor. So if I were completely disinterested in just saying what's the best use of dollars, and you were designing a process, I would be asking some questions about what matching funds programs are bringing, how they can make those dollars stretch over time, how they're going to make use of medically assisted treatment to help people, whether or not they're able to offer intensive supports and wraparound supports like peer supports, case management, sober housing, et cetera. So just those are complex services. They're really valuable. We are desperate for them. These dollars might help us get closer to them. I don't know because I don't design those programs, so I don't know the exact cost, but they're costly. The other thing I would say is just like homelessness, and you've heard me on this subject, these kinds of issues require sort of multi-pronged approaches. So I would be asking about where are the critical gaps in the community. I think we're doing a nice job with harm reduction. I think we have more work to do with surveillance, real-time surveillance. So I worry about that. Are we paying attention to where and how fentanyl is showing up in our community? Who's dying? Who's most at risk? And are we directing our efforts appropriately to the data we're collecting from reliable sources? So that's probably a gap we have now. That was one of the reasons for one of our proposals. And then we have huge gaps in sober housing. Significant. Now, I don't know if this is enough money to get you to sober housing. This is really your call. And if you're going in a direction not based on what a department would recommend, I just want to say politely, you definitely have some homework to do to make sure you spend the dollars well, because it's complicated, but it's your call.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
DV, do you have any thoughts from what we've been talking about?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Janice. I just want to say I think that I would have lots of faith in what the Health Services Department proposed from the perspectives and the expertise that they came from. An interesting conversation that I have been having with Janice and some other folks to maybe enhanced that, or what perked my interest in potentially these funds, maybe for additional or different purposes, I think comes down to, addiction is really broken relationships, right? There's just so many broken relationships wherever, a relationship with oneself and with others, and sort of recovery through healthy relationship and sustainable relationships is a really good way to ensure accountability to any kind of treatment program and support that comes kind of along at the same time. It's support and accountability, and it teaches accountability and not just holds people accountable. And this idea that the importance of peer recovery mentors to anybody who is at any stage of addiction treatment, I don't think we can overstate it. But being a peer recovery mentor is really hard work. As a peer, that means you yourself are in recovery. And you have that journey that you're on, and you're helping other people through that strong relationship, right? And what we have heard from those treatment providers that we primarily work with on the criminal justice side, Pfeiffer and Associates, Turning Points Recovery, and Best Care for drug and alcohol treatment, and others that work with them, is that this is a whole area of the system that needs a tremendous amount of support. It needs professionalism. It needs, training on ethics and on boundaries and on just self-care for folks in recovery themselves to kind of keep on that path while they're also in the business of helping others recover. And I don't think that element isn't always supported by Oregon Health Authority dollars. Like, all the different ways that individuals could provide support isn't always reimbursed to those agencies, right? So sometimes that work falls under in the cracks, and certainly just supporting those individuals to do that work, I don't think is really a part of what OHA does. So we have a whole cadre of people that we're relying on heavily to help others recover in a real way that they can relate to. It's not their PO, it's not the behavioral health counselor that they're seeing, right? It's this peer, but they need help too. And I would be really interested to make some connections between some recovery mentor specialists who it's their job to provide those services and to help professionalize the field. I'm specifically thinking of a nonprofit that's just formed in our area recently called First Light that we've been doing a tremendous amount of work with. But I would love to just see them hooked up with the business that we're doing, and love to see them help out the established community-based providers to really bolster that section of their work. And so I'll stop there. I know I've been going on for quite a while, but I'm really excited about it for our field. It's really important when you're in the criminal justice system that you have people you can look to that aren't your PO, that aren't people whose identity has that power and that accountability over you, but to work with somebody. And we don't see enough of that. We see a lot of cracks in that system, and it can result in failure for the individual. So that would be one enhancement I'd be interested in. And I think that would just mean maybe working with behavioral health together, coordinating that with First Light or some other set of folks that are doing this work that I'd be really excited about. And thanks for the opportunity to share that.
So for what it's worth, we would certainly, if the decision of the board was to direct some resources to peers, we have a lot of expertise in both onboarding peers, training peers. We know that we collaborated with COCC on the training program for peers in our region, and contracting with peer-run organizations, which we regularly do. But we'd be willing to work with DV on thinking about that as well. So we want to see these dollars in the community making a difference.
Me too.
Yes.
So DV, you had mentioned Piper and Associates, Turning Point, and Best Care this morning. So now you're saying that First Light is somebody that's part of that group?
They're their own nonprofit. They are recovery mentors themselves. They've actually worked, I think there's 3 people who have founded the organization, and they have worked in, I think, all of those agencies. And they have really strong relationships with all of them. They now work outside of it, although they still continue to mentor people. Frankly, the business of recovery mentoring was not financially feasible for them. So they all have day jobs as well to some extent, but they're just able to come in and help peer recovery mentors be the best peer recovery mentors they can be, and to support them. And they've also been really strong with helping people that identify as Native American to consult and find community in Native American communities to help them, you know, with that spiritual support that might be really unique for those individuals. And that's something that we sometimes see a lack of in our community, is folks able to be culturally responsive to the needs of people in recovery. So they're really multifaceted, and they work with those agencies. So the vision I have is really of kind of just what Janice was saying, like hooking up all this expertise we have in the community, but getting together and talking about where those gaps really are, and supporting community-based folks to solve those, not like relying necessarily on, you know, county folks to be doing that.
Was that kind of what's referred to, what we're talking about under collaborative cross-system coordination and surveillance activities?
No, I mean, if I were gonna advocate now, I'm gonna switch into my advocate role. We really have some need in the prevention side of our work. And we had one supervisor partially funded and another position funded in the proposal. That we still have to figure out how to support in some way to do more targeted prevention work specific to opioid use disorder, fentanyl, the role it's playing in our community, et cetera. So that's a piece of work. I think I'm really intrigued by what Dee Dee's talking about in terms of better coordinating some of our peer-run organizations. I mean, they really struggle. And when OHA rolled out Measure 110 funding, they rolled it out to all these peer organizations and then asked them to bill Medicaid and do all sorts of complicated things that they're not set up to do. They need infrastructure to do, they don't have it. And so sometimes if Dee Dee's agency or ours is able to direct contract with peer-run organizations, they can operate more like a boots on the ground organization that they're designed to be. You know, that said, I'm a huge fan of peers, and we employ close to 30 now and consider those community-based folks who are doing valuable work out there. So I'm not sure I would say that we're not doing that. I think health services is absolutely doing that, and moving more and more in the direction of peer-led work. But there are organizations out there doing great stuff. I'm not familiar with the one Dee Dee's talking about. I'm familiar with I'm gonna forget their name now. I can't remember. Anyway.
Well, Drug Health Center is just the Dr. Ken. Let's see, Monty in Jefferson County, that was actually his passion, according to Dr. Baker's conversation with me this morning. He left working for Mosaic and went to a drug center up there, and I just thought, that's so great. You graduated from honors from, medical school and everything, but he sees that need there. So.
Yeah, and Mosaic, as our partner, has every single one of their providers just about certified to provide medically assisted treatment, both for alcohol use disorder and for opioid use disorder. So, there's a lot of resource in the community. Sometimes it's about what peers do that no one else can do, is actually get people who really need treatment to treatment. They are not going to come because I invite them. They won't see me as someone who has had their experience. And they come in response to the amazing and really beautiful work of our peers and peers in the community that have lived the experience and recovered. Sometimes after everyone gave up on them. And many of whom received harm reduction. Just as a fan of harm reduction for years before they finally got into recovery and got clean, were able to be helpful. So all those strategies matter to this community very much. And our peers will tell you about them.
DB was explaining that the first year, it's sometimes when they need that annual or that monthly shot injection, and to get them there, the peer is actually so important.
Yep.
To make that happen.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to care as much as someone who's been through the process and realize the value and the worth of it.
Well, and to help them not lose hope when they relapse, because relapse is part of recovery. And to say, I relapsed 3 times before I got clean for 3 years. I can say that, and it doesn't matter. But for a woman who lost her kids and finally got them back after 7 years of a struggle, it makes an enormous profound difference. So, sorry, I'm saying a lot of them. Vivi and I are definitely peer fans and support peer work wherever it's happening.
But Janice, you mentioned surveillance, kind of knowing what's going on real time. one of these positions, part of that?
Yeah.
3 positions you proposed, one was the full-time. Health specialist, the other was 0.2.
Yeah, we, all of these things hang together, so sometimes it's hard to separate it, but we would like to dedicate some supervisor time to helping with, let me make sure I get this right, it's been a while since I looked at our proposals.
But yeah, just the surveillance of, what's going on, so.
Yeah, the
say being able to
surveillance and
respond-
coordination was the supervisor FTE. It was a portion of the supervisor FTE. And that's to do 2 really specific things, which is to work with Crook County that received funds from the OHA for a regional surveillance model, and we've referred to that as Cooper. So that's the Central Oregon Opioid Prevention Resource Alliance, I think is what the R stands for. And they're doing some really good work around surveilling current real-time use data. Where is fentanyl showing up? What are overdoses looking like? OHA is also trying to get more current. Their data was sometimes 2 years old, which is completely unhelpful for risk mitigation. So that role would be coordinating with that project and would be working to coordinate our internal efforts. So we have harm reduction right now. We have Hep C harm reduction that we're working on as a smaller project. We're doing working with the pain management standards task force and with the regional opioid response group. All of that is work that was coordinated by a coordinator. It really isn't at this point. So the supervisor would have some movement there. The other position was 100% funded through these dollars, and that was a prevention specialist who would also help supervise the substance use disorder prevention team and do targeted prevention specific to fentanyl and opioid use disorder and other substances.
So I get kind of back to the recovery programs, and if we could do some kind of one-time dollars or 1, 2, 3 years into this. So just like you mentioned, I mean, we're not going to do it for 20 years, and there's never going to be enough money to do it at the level we should. I'm just thinking, is there something impactful we can do in the next year or 2 with X amount of dollars in support of recovery programs? And it's just that same concept of, okay, well, you're having a problem. Let's get you stabilized. Let's get you some support. We have nowhere to put you. I mean, so, and that's kind of the scenario we hear a lot. So, as I said, I didn't come in here today with a mature proposal on that, but that's what I'd like to see if we can just peel off part of this for that effort. Yeah, an effort like that, as I said, I'm not sure.
I mean, what would be helpful, just speaking for health services, and I don't know about DEP, but if you, even if you excuse us and discuss and make a decision, if you simply let us know what of what we proposed, you might consider funding. What does that leave remaining, if anything? Dee and I put our heads together with our departments and do some thoughtful strategizing about what, because there is a large sum up front that might really be of use. And then there's some ongoing dollars that you can find for long-term efforts. I think I don't want to speak for DV, but I think we'd be happy to put our heads together and think about a population we'd like to really target and what might be the best way to do that.
And it's, at this point, it's kind of that terminology, peel something off, target one time, being able, so then, you can make a plan for the next 20 years or whatever the time frame is. Is a structure that I would start to go towards. And say, I don't even have specifics here today, but Commissioner Dare, you're listing off the organizations and the efforts that are provided. I bet there's somebody out there that could do something, if it was like $200,000 for 2 years, and so then we just peel off and empower somebody to do something.
The need is so overwhelming. And in fact, Saturday, I heard the story of someone who was doing drugs and her baby was going to be taken from her. So, we've got that part of what's happening in our community too. And you think, oh my, because she was doing drugs, she's losing her baby. How long will she lose that baby for? And what harm did she do to her baby because she was doing drugs? So, yeah, I mean, you hear about it you see or hear about it every day.
I mean, the things that have been proposed are impactful. These are not expenditures that are frivolous or irrelevant. These are things that are really make a difference. I mean, there are a lot of people who come through the stabilization center who have co-occurring substance use disorder issues. There are a lot of people who can be reached through the prevention strategies that health services practices that we have a lot of evidence are very successful. So I mean, I appreciate the desire to do something meaningful and impactful with these funds, but just because there are a lot of potentially impactful things to be done, it doesn't mean that the things that we're looking at aren't really impactful. And possibly the best things that we could invest in, given the scale of the money that we're talking about. If we had $20 million in hand right this moment, we might all want to be interested in investing in a residential treatment facility. But we don't. I mean, this is $6 or $7 million over a span of many years. It's not all the dollars we need to make a massive capital investment. We just saw, in the last year and a half, Best Care had kind of a plan to move forward with a secure residential treatment facility. And then, for various reasons, including, how daunting it would be to operate that, backed away from it. So we have a certain amount of money to spend in a certain amount of time. We have some impactful things that right in front of us. We can cast around and look for other things, but I don't necessarily think that is an effective use of time.
So what is the number? Stephanie, do you have the number of money that's going to be available this first year? I don't have that schedule with me. I was just wondering, okay, so it's like 372,000 averaged over 18 years, but I know it's bigger at certain times. Do we?
I might know that you.
I mean, I was just wondering if, I would really, knowing that DV lives in this world too, and you guys could get together and talk about First Light. Is that somebody that would really be able to take off and do more? They sound like this is their area of expertise.
I mean, I don't know that organization. I wouldn't weigh in on that right now. I think my memory is there's upwards of $1 million to $1.5 million in the first year.
Really?
That's a lump sum amount. And then the amounts after that really dwindle to the 300,000 to 400,000 at best. And those are the ones that are coming in over time, right? So that was why we made the proposal we did. We said we were uncertain about stabilization funding. We know that it's a program that interacts regularly with substance use disorders. We do harm reduction. We have peers on site. It is one of the drop-in centers for the Measure $110. That doesn't mean we couldn't sit down and really think about how to spend a lump sum differently. I mean, I think we're willing to do that. And I know that because I've talked with Holly, and Holly is certainly willing to have that conversation. Though, we worry about the longevity of the stabilization center. I can't not say that in the room. Let me see if I can find the budget that Cheryl had originally.
Is this it?
That
You probably know how to
that
read
is
it
it.
better than I do.
So it looks like about 1.5 in the first year, and the second year 780,000. And this is because of a Walmart
Right, they're paying
dispersal,
out.
and then also what we haven't spent in almost a year now. After that, it goes to it looks like sorry, I'm trying to figure out fiscal years here. So it's there's 900,000 not spent. 1.5 was planned, but yeah, this is more specific, but thanks, Dave, I appreciate it. So by fiscal year 27, it goes down to about 348,000 and then dwindles from there to 230. So the first 3 years, there is there's over $1 million available. Well, depending on how you spend it. So there was $1.5 million in our budget the first year, 780 in the second year remaining, and that was applied to the third year. So that allowed for larger expenditures in fiscal year 25 and 26, and then it dwindled after that. Robert may have some sense of it as well. No, okay.
Well, so the point of clarity for me though is, so it's the bullet point saying expansion of handout programs and recovery programs, expansion of handout programs and recovery programs. That's right where I'm at. One-time fund would be great to be able to do that and say, I don't have a specific proposal I'm bringing today. And then, you know, just a couple of the players out there. I do understand it's long-term operating, but I mean, if there was, you know, $500,000 for somebody. So the scenario I see is stabilization center. Oh, we've seen this person before. Oh, this person could use some help. If we had somewhere to get them stabilized, stabilization center, this is going to be the right. So what are those handoff things that would be valuable? So one-time investment in handoff programs is what I'd like to research a little bit. If there's support for that, that's a point of clarity for me.
I know because at the stabilization centers, some of the people have been there more than once. We have that group. So
Yes.
where is it we can get them real help? And I'm sure you guys have already offered it but you know, somehow we've got to get more people help.
Well, so as I say, if we can come out of today, sorry, there's no decision now, but I mean, stabilization center, I'm sure that, you know, with a couple years history, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, there's a, you know, kind of a scenario that if we had a person to be able to send this person to, or a service to send this person to, that may be a good investment. So I guess that would be a specific ask from today. And as I say, I mean, if it's just too big of a mountain to climb, then we have plan A to go back to, I guess is my thought. So I would like to proceed with that, to see from the stabilization center's point of view, is there a handout program or recovery program that might be right for an investment? Obviously not a big investment, probably not going to be big over the long term either.
Could you take a minute and just talk us through, like, interested in, you know, where do people go from the stabilization center? My impression is that people very often are referred from the stabilization center to clinical service providers from the county as well as, you know, other places. I mean, can you kind of give us a sense of the scope of where we're referring to?
Yeah, so from the stabilization center, we're referring people to many things. So some people are ready and willing to go into care somewhere. And remember that we're serving people with mental illness, with addiction, and with both. And frankly, many of the adults we serve really are experiencing addiction and serious mental health crises. So they may go someplace like Brooks Respite. They may go to some other residential treatment facility. There aren't many. They are expensive to run. So I don't know that this gets us there. They may go to follow up with a case manager, a peer support specialist who we employ in the stabilization center, or through one of our partner agencies like Pfeiffer and Associates, like Best Care, like Ideal Options. That's the other peer run organization. I don't know, DB, if you've worked a lot with Ideal Options, but they've been really wonderful peers with, in particular, those of our folks who are pretty, you know, have engaged in some criminal behavior as well as being very mentally ill and very addicted. So we have a broad span of options available. We offer harm reduction. We may refer them to our homeless outreach services team, to our harm reduction team, to a clinical team, to psychiatry, to medically assisted treatment, either through Mosaic or through Bend. My memory is so bad.
Oh, that was a lot of information though.
Bend Treatment Center, sorry, they might go to the DRC, to the Recovery Center if they're on a commitment, in particular, aid and assist or civil commitment. So there's so many options.
Well, so I mean, that I'm still liking what I was saying. Then. So basically, you know, touch base with Holly and say, is there an investment out there that would be valuable? And then, you know, maybe there's somewhere where we can land it, and maybe not, as to say, I mean, maybe I'm just hoping, but you know, that's something I'd like to proceed with. Take another step into this.
Yeah, one thing I would really appreciate if you are willing, and again, please deliberate without me in the room. It's helpful
It's
for
always
us.
a public meeting.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to give you good information and acknowledge self-interest too for the organization. I need to know what you're willing of our proposal to consider funding. It tells us what's remaining that we have to work with. Is it the whole shebang? Is it a portion of it? Is there something here you're interested in funding and committed to? You know, we don't want to be operating in kind of the swimming pool of unknowns. I think for DB and I, it's helpful to just have a sense of what dollar amount you have in mind, how we can collaborate on a good plan. Whether it's the one-time dollars, whether it's the ongoing dollars, because that's a different scenario for both. So that's my request, if you can find consensus on where to go with that.
Well, okay, and yeah, I mean, it's not my intention to have this go a long time. As I say, I'm searching for maybe that one-time investment up front, because then the spreadsheet will just fall into place too, which it will give you the clarity.
Okay.
So do you support working with Stabilization Center leadership, basically,
Right,
in search of a one-time investment or partnership to enhance handout
Definitely.
programs and recovery programs? As
definitely.
I say, not even making a decision today, but just looking for the next thing.
I think we just heard from Janice how many places people go from the stabilization center. If you want to pick one of those, just one, then there's gonna be all kinds of questions why we didn't invest the other 8. If you want to spread this small amount of money across 8, the impact that it will have will be insignificant. So I
Jared,
don't think
I mean-
there's not a thing.
So you don't support that?
I think we're wasting time. I think we're wasting time when these resources could be going to work, helping people who have substance use disorders, or could be going to work preventing people from falling into addiction.
Is Holly on vacation this week? No, okay, well, because DB brought up the First Light program, which sounds like it's something that perhaps could be part of what we're doing. I would just, if you all could meet with DB and those people as soon as possible and just find out, is this something that we could really actually help them? You're saying they work a day job to do this job at night or something?
I've met them. I've met them. They're great people. They're doing something really awesome.
Okay,
I still don't necessarily think that that's, you know, that would, you know, the shiny spinny thing that just popped up. That we're not just, that we should just be grabbing that and dumping a bunch of money.
Could I suggest a pathway maybe? Are you open to that?
Please.
So DB, you can pull my reins if you think I'm headed in the wrong direction. Let us meet, let DB and Holly and Heather, because I want to please remind you all that this is a public health emergency, and I am not willing to make this plan without Heather at the table as well. So I'd like DB and Heather and Holly and I to get together. I think if what we propose is some version of this and looking at a process to fund a peer-led organization that we think can make a difference, or more than one if we think there's enough remaining, we will come up with probably a suggestion that you allow one of us to simply do an RFP. And then there's a competitive process and there's a way to say, these are the strategies we'd like to do. I can't believe I'm volunteering to do it. Did I just do that? What is wrong with me?
Yeah, did you intend on it? Well,
If we have $1.5 million, we're talking about a significant amount of funding this year that can actually do something. So I think it definitely warrants the four of you all getting together.
Let us do
and-
that.
Yeah,
We will do
And-
that.
this is so important. I mean, people are dying practically on a, daily basis, weekly basis.
Right, we know those people who see them.
Yeah.
So we are very aware of the people that are dying and the ripple effect it has on the lives of the people who love them. So-
Their families.
So DB, am I headed in the wrong direction?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I do feel compelled to say, First Light is an example of an organization that is doing something very, very old, not shiny and new, but it is somehow, it's, how things are circular. It's coming around again to realize this beautiful thing called peer recovery services, which is so important to what Stabilization Center is doing, has some gaps and needs. And I look forward to a conversation that says, where are enhancements needed there? Because there could be some improvements, right? There, without a doubt. And I would really appreciate being a part of that conversation and appreciate this one as well. Thanks.
Yeah.
okay. Well, as I say, it's not to delay, but yeah, let's see if there's one-time investments up front to get something to happen, and then we'll bring this back. And it doesn't need to take long here now, but a little bit more clarity. Thank you for putting this together in the form you did for today to get the conversation going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, how do I get that billboard up? Yeah.
That could be one of the recommendations that come out of this work.
I know, but I thought even Deschutes
Or-
County had funding for billboards. We used to, a year or two ago. We did have
Was
some.
Talk to the public health director.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, the fact that Jefferson County had it up and I was like, oh my gosh, there's my billboard. Thank goodness it's right there on 97. You can't go by it without seeing it.
that falls under prevention programs and could be part of the one-time funding.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric.
Okay, item number 4, draft presentation for upcoming Ben Chamber Brewing event.
Okay, we have some handouts. So, last week I sent out a draft presentation that was essentially, the presentation from last year. And since then, Sarah from Ben Chamber sent an agenda, which is the first cover sheet here, and some topics to highlight. So this morning I worked on updating the presentation, and I've included those slides in your packet there. Thought we could just go through them one by one and see if there's anything you want to add or change. My thought is, in a couple of weeks, I'll come back with the final presentation for you guys to review before August 8th.
So the format is panel discussion.
Yeah, we need to update Core's new name. You know, they're rehomed, something like that, rehomed, rerooted,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so we don't have to spell KOR anymore.
And I spoke with Sarah this morning and we kind of discussed like the format. And we talked about doing a slide presentation in the beginning to kick it off. And then she has prepared a few questions to kind of get the Q&A started. And then it'll be a question and answer portion with the audience as well.
So we be the panel,
You are the panel and Nick.
county administrator. That helps to understand the format. Yeah, okay. So then the Tether event, it must be a size or, even if it's full, it won't be 1,000 people, maybe 150 or 200. Part of this is them being able to sell event tickets too. I mean, that's part of what we're doing here, but it could be very substantive. I appreciate it. being able to answer questions. So interesting. So the key chamber issues are chamber issues, you know, we are the county and we were able to invest in ARPA dollars. So I'm just thinking through. We might want to kind of defend or advocate for what are county issues, you know, I mean, chambers issues. Saying, why didn't you build more houses in Bend? Well, that's the city of Bend, you know, I mean, just, we could end up in that situation if we're not careful.
That's what people want to ask. If those are the questions that people want to ask, then we should be prepared.
Oh, people can ask any questions, I'm just referring to the concepts here, so workforce housing. You know, workforce housing, if that may be an vision of urban housing. As I say, some people resist rural housing, so. Yes, the expectation, remember, this is the county we're talking to, that's all, that was all I'm trying
Talking
to
about
say.
rural ADUs as part of this. I mean, I think that is. That's one of the most significant things we have to share with people on the housing front. If they're interested in workforce and affordable housing, which is we're mixing, I mean, we're mixing mixing categories. I would say capital A affordable housing, you know, there's, you know, this slide that we have, the ARPA investments that we made, those are capital A federally designated affordable housing. The home fund is targeted at missing middle, which is specifically not capital A affordable housing. I would call all of it, the missing middle and the affordable housing, workforce housing. So those are a couple things I think we need to be mindful of when we're doing this presentation.
Well, yeah, so we'll all be sitting side by side and it may be like this, it may be tense. You know, you're always trying to correct me when I'm trying to say words or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see how it flows when we're sitting side by side in front of an audience like that.
Correcting you, I'm saying, I'm talking about what I think is important to talk about and providing feedback on the way that this first draft of the presentation is provided.
Stephanie, one thing that I think might be good to bring up in under childcare is the fact that, was it in 19 or 20 when, before COVID, when we actually got, we gave permits for people to do childcare out in the country. And to make people aware of that, I just feel like it's really, you know, we were trying to do our part, what we could do to help with the situation, and that was before, you know, all the ARPA funding and everything that came through. Then we definitely added dollars to it, but this was something we did as county commissioners.
Allow childcare in the Sun River.
Well, that one, plus there was an overall legislation though that we did for like a conditional
It was converted from a conditional to an outright authorized use.
authorized use. Okay.
Community development.
So if you could like cite that and everything, I think that would be important. And then of course the Sun River, yeah, we did that. And then of course that closed because they couldn't have help.
The board also had a commitment to the Chamber's Childcare Accelerator position in the first year that position was created, so that might be another
Right.
good addition because it's a direct tie-in to their work in the area. I can fully.
Is
answer
she-
for you.
They don't have her anymore.
No, my understanding was that position's not currently filled, but when it started, I believe. the
Right,
board
we
was
were-
supportive.
We were part of that too.
Megan Norris is now a state council.
Is there anything specific to ADUs that I could add to a slide or that you want to make sure?
I just want to compliment Chamber for what an excellent job they did in educating their public. They revamped their website, you know, trying to get more people to build ADUs within the city. And then the fact that we are going to have them in the county at some point in time, you know, it complements each other. So I do want to acknowledge all the work that they did. Their public education was really good a year ago.
So for ADUs, it'll just be the status is at the moment. So the planning commission heard it recently. It'll come in front of us. So we'll have to look at the calendar to see either it's coming or it just came or, you know, in front of the board proper. So it's kind of a calendar, right?
Just a little bit of background, you know, Senate Bill 391 from the 2021 legislative session. Authorized rural ADUs. Now we're on the cusp of actually you know, issuing the local regulations to allow them.
The public hearing is July 26th, so it'll be just before this presentation on the
Yeah,
8th,
great.
but you
Yeah,
will,
so
it
it'll
will
be
be
real
fresh in
time.
your mind in terms of.
Update.
So we can refer back to July
Yeah.
26th.
And then two things Sarah had on here, the regional childcare collaborative and state funding opportunities for childcare. Anything specific there that I could add or that you'd like to touch on?
So yeah, from my point of view, you know, we were able to invest, Neighbor Impact kind of takes the lead, from my point of view and, the foundational, trying to help small businesses get started and down that path. But I haven't really thought about it much recently. Is it, the chamber, if it's their focus, they probably have more information than I do, so I don't know if you know, the commissioners.
If by regional child care collaborative, they mean that consortium. So basically, we indicated that we were willing to spend a significant amount of the ARPA funds on childcare. And then this consortium came together. It did include Neighbor Impact. It's also OSU Cascades was a significant leader. The chamber was a significant player, and the ESD as well. And they were the ones who essentially crafted this bundle, like all the stuff on this slide. They crafted this bundle of ARPA proposals for us. So I think that's what I thought they called it a consortium, right? But if that's what they mean by the regional child care collaborative, we could talk about that. State funding opportunities, I don't, that's state legislative things that there was a big chunk of money that came through that channel as well, but we didn't really have a whole lot. The county didn't have much to do with it, so I don't know whether if that was something that the chamber asked us to talk about or.
Yeah, so it's
Not our, I don't think it's our thing.
see, that's kind of the same conclusion I had. It's more an effort that they did that we were able to invest in, but I don't know the status of it personally.
But I do think that code or the code change, that would be a really good thing for us to cover. I know that childcare advocates operating inside the city of Bend, we're trying to figure out how they could get the city to convert childcare from a conditional to an outright use as well.
So this is step one.
Yes.
Now we understand the format a little bit more. I would like to look for the opportunity to make sure that we, you know, share our piece, you know, put it in context of Deschutes County, and, you know, just like our slide deck in the past, remind people, okay, put your rural land use hat on and the other elected officials and, you know, just kind of the scope of what we do. You know, maybe not the basics like county college, but at least the introduction to the, you know, what we do day to day, and then we can get into the topics that they want to ask us about.
Stephanie?
Second to last slide that's got some hot topics listed. That's a way to signal to people what, you know, some other things the county is working on that they didn't ask about specifically, but and I don't think we should go on at length about any of those unless people ask about them, but that is your opportunity to say. You didn't ask about this yet, but here's some other things that we're working on if you want to hear about them.
And we'll do that slideshow before we get started or before the panel discussion, I mean.
Yes,
So their schedule of events will evolve with. Yeah, where do you think it's gonna be? Or
yeah, it's kind of, Sarah suggested doing the presentation first, running through the slides, and then doing the Q&A to follow, and the times might not be accurate on this draft here, depending on how long.
5:35 after the introductions or something, do a slideshow.
Yes, yeah.
The interesting thing, I just looked it up, through the end of January of 22, they'd only built 702 ADUs legally in Bend. Then last year they did that huge push for it. So I wonder how many more they were able to get into. I don't know, I can make a call if you don't know, if you can't find out how many they're at now. But the city of Bend really targeted that. I thought they were incredibly successful. So were they able to bring another 500, into existence?
No, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's for all of that outreach, awareness raising. The fact remains that an ADU is a really expensive thing to build, and I don't think we're going to see a real bump until someone's offering a cost share.
Well, Sunshine Homes has a a kit for building ADUs that is much more reasonable. I believe you can go to Home Depot and order it. So just to keep the costs down. So I think that's great to let the community know about that.
All right.
There's
Thank
step one,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'll incorporate this and then come back in a couple weeks with the final.
Well, and it's coming up quick too, it's only 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget the week before is the fair,
The fair.
so we will need to do this like,
Yeah, I mean, go ahead and lean into it earlier if we
Okay.
need to.
yes.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Other items at this time? Anything? No.
But,
Yeah, other items? No?
in fact, I did go on Deer Ridge and I had a tour again. And it definitely found that the program for welding for inmates, COCC does it. Your program for welding, 12 inmates get to do it. They're certified at the end. That job can pay $40 to $60 an hour. Talking to some of the gentlemen that were doing the program, and they asked me if there's any way we could get another teacher from COCC. So I already called Ken. Yeah, they've got the room, and they actually said if they could have construction internship program there too, would be really outstanding. They're up to like 1,000 inmates, and the minimum security side where Alan Evans could run his program easily is still empty, and they're, it's still impeccably clean. So they're maintaining that facility. It's unbelievable. But just to see the welding program, I hadn't toured that before, and I thought that was really outstanding. So we can get that program doubled just to help people with recidivism and actually, leave the prison, as Davey said, but have something that's an incredible job opportunity.
Great.
I know, it was amazing. But they do have a new superintendent. She's been there a couple of months. Really, everyone couldn't have been nicer. It's, and a whole group of like 18 people walked out the door, and they do all the landscaping on like the massive acres that surround the property, and they just walked out, and all of them stood, and we're like, wow, as we were sitting there waiting. So it was, they're trying to really help the people that are there.
Okay, thank you. So I saw through the ARPA email, Neighbor Impacts asking for dollars to get to their fully funded construction cost of the food warehouse. So we had given them check already. They did a bunch of fundraising. Now they're back to say it really is expensive to build. So just acknowledging that. What does it look like to bring back? Guess Robert's not here now.
Who did that email go to?
Oh,
To us.
so,
Here it is.
yeah, there, we'll let you know.
It came through the ARPA email.
Yeah.
Yeah, ARPA sent it.
Finance.
Yeah, they
Was
want
that-
another
It
million.
came through the ARPA.
Oh, okay.
For-
So Dan, that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we can bring that around,
they can bring it back and. For discussion.
so that just came into that too. And then HIDCO annual membership kind of reception meeting. I was able to stop by last Thursday. I know you're at the HIDCO board proper. It's good to see everybody. It was kind of at their facility there, switching the board chairperson over, so. Did you remember the gentleman's name first or his name?
Brian,
Ryan?
Brian.
Brian.
Brian's another
Yeah.
B, it's another part,
Brian. Dees-
Burglar or.
Yeah, yeah, so. So it's good to see everybody back. Okay, anything else?
Yes, six sessions.
Being nothing, we'll go to an executive session, this will be under real property negotiation.